Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Law and Finance Show, and today we have another great guest on. Now, when it comes down to thinking about, criminal defense, you don't often hear a lot of attorneys talking about the business side of managing a criminal defense. Oftentimes, they're very deep into the practice of defending their clients. But one of the things you have to think about is the business side of like, how do you actually lead a firm? All those things that don't directly evolve around criminal defense. Well, today's guest has been recognized with multiple awards for what they're doing, and I'm excited about this guest. So stay tuned for today's episode. All right, without further ado, let me bring on David Shapiro. Welcome to the show, David. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I find interesting because I talk to a lot of lawyers, a lot of different law firms, and it's always interesting when you talk to, a lot of criminal defense lawyers because a lot of times they don't go into criminal defense because they're like, "Hey, I want to run a criminal defense firm." It's usually they have a passion for the type of work that they do. So, been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
Now, before we jump into, the details of like, your firm and just kind of how you're, leading as the owner and managing partner, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I grew up in on Staten Island, New York, so the fifth and forgotten borough of New York City. Grew up in New York, went to college in Western New York at the University of Buffalo from 99 to 2003. And then I knew I wanted to go to law school probably before then, and decided to go to Tulane University Law School in New Orleans. So I was in New Orleans for 3 years from '03 to '06. Hurricane Katrina in '05 is what brought me out to San Diego temporarily. Fell in love with San Diego in particular, the criminal defense community out here, and moved out to San Diego in 2006. Became a lawyer in '07. Started my firm in 2010, and April of 2023 will be 13 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations on the progress. I mean, 13 years is a very big deal. I think these days I'm telling people like, if you hit 2 years, that's a big deal.
That's the thing. I mean, there's moments in those first couple of weeks, those first couple of months, first couple of years, and you're not sure if it's going to work with you, let alone you and a team and a staff and a growing group of people. So it's been a blessing. It's a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, and a lot of blessing, and we're very happy to be here.
Awesome. Now, so there was some time between like that when you became a lawyer and then when you started your firm. So did you go the route of working in big law or did you work for like smaller regional firms or did you what was that part of your journey like?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first thing is I for the longest time thought I was going to work with the public defender's office, and when I passed the bar, the public defender's office was not hiring. And I knew that I only really wanted to do criminal defense. I only really knew criminal defense, right? And admittedly, not that well as a brand new lawyer. So I did a whole lot of nothing really the first couple of months. It was the summer of 2007. I was trying to, make some money and went to court a lot and just observed other lawyers. Ran into someone who I looked up to and heard a lot of good things about. He introduced me to a mid-size, by national standards, by San Diego. It was the largest criminal defense firm at the time, and got hooked up with them and worked there for the first 2.5 years. And then I ultimately left directly from there in April of 2010 to start my firm.
Gotcha. Now, that part of the journey for a lot of lawyers is one I always find to be very interesting. So, were there any events or what kind of sparked your interest of saying like, hey, I got enough of what I need. I'm ready to go on my own. Like what kind of spurred that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a place that I was happy there until I wasn't, right? And I'm grateful and appreciative of the opportunity, despite probably not realizing how blessed I was at the time. You're when you're in the middle of something, sometimes it's like I got to get out. I can't get out soon enough. But looking back on it, there was a lot of things. Admittedly, I learned what I didn't want to translate or didn't want to transfer to my own business, and there were a lot of things that I did learn. I received a ton of experience. Was handed and entrusted pretty serious cases, especially as a lawyer 2 3 years out. and that made me much more, adept to handle those types of cases as I went out on my own. So very appreciative of that opportunity. It was just time. I saw the direction that firm was going in. I wanted to go a different direction, and I wanted to lead that direction myself.
Awesome. Now, one of the common things that usually comes up when I'm talking to so many different lawyers is a common phrase they say is, we did not learn about the business side of running a law firm in law school. So when you made that step from working for another firm to then branching out, leading your own firm, what was that transition like? Because you were no longer just practicing law now. You had other responsibilities. So what was that like for you?
It was difficult, and admittedly, from 2010 through the end of 2016, I really wasn't running it like a business. I was running it like, as you alluded to, I think early on in the intro, like so many attorneys do, so many solo or small practitioners, particularly criminal defense attorneys do, where you're making some money, you're helping a lot of people, but I really had no idea where the next case was coming from. I really had no idea that whether or not I was going to be able to sustain it. I mean, I knew I was a good lawyer. I knew I was helping people, but I didn't know how I was going to scale it, right? Because there's only so many cases you can handle as an individual before the product starts getting watered down. And I knew I didn't want that, but I really didn't have a pathway to figure it out because I didn't have that business background. So really, until the end of 2016, when I started investing, significant amount of time and resources in business coaching, particularly working with small law firms, was when things started to turn, and that's when I saw the revenue increase, and that's when I saw the breadth of the people we've been able to help increase and double and triple from what I was able to do by myself.
Nice. Now, I guess as you started working with, some of those coaches or coaching programs, were you shocked about how much you didn't know about that side of running your firm?
Yeah, I was shocked, right? Because especially doing criminal defense, and I can't really speak for other cities, but I've done some worked in as a law student and as undergraduate in criminal defense firms in New York and New Orleans, and here in San Diego though it was very much the icons or the legends of criminal defense in San Diego were great lawyers, but they weren't really running a business. So I could learn a ton and still learn a ton from these individuals, but as far as how to run a business, there was no idol or role model in the criminal defense community, at least I thought at that time. And, it was difficult because you join this business coaching program and they start talking about CFO, CEO, COO. I mean, I'm struggling to figure out what these acronyms even mean, at the time, in my early 30s, and let alone implementing all these things. And the temptation and the knee jerk reaction a lot of times is to say, well, no, I don't need to do that. My firm's different. My firm's special. My firm's unique. At the end of the day, it's a business, and the business needs to do well in order to help people, right? Because you started doing criminal defense to help people. Our magic statement, our trademark slogan is we help good people regain control of their future when charged with a crime. And the reality is, until I started running it like a business, we were capped about the number of people we could help in the San Diego community because it was just me. And year after year after year, we're able to touch more lives, both inside the courtroom and in the community. And that is attributed nearly 100% to running a law firm like a business.
You know what? I laugh because I find that every time I hear that story from different lawyers, it very similar to the field of accounting. Like my background is accounting, finance. I went the probably the traditional route of working for a big accounting firm, got my CPA license, and worked for some major corporations. But a lot of times when you see accountants leave working for someone else to start their own firm, they go through a very similar path of they're just focused on doing the work. They're not really focused on actually running the business. And then it's just like that wake up call of like, hey, you can only help so many people directly until you actually start thinking about it like a business. And so one of those first roadblocks that a lot of them reach is when it's time to scale and start bringing on a team. So what was that like for you? And you were going through that process of, hiring some of your first, people or bringing some of your first people onto your team.
Sure. It was uncomfortable, right? And I think that's why a lot of people don't scale. I think that's why a lot of people, bury themselves into work, especially whether you're an accountant leaving a big firm and you're like, okay, I'm just going to work my way through this, or a lawyer on your own, right? You're comfortable being a lawyer. You're probably not comfortable being a business person, but to start building the team, I was fortunate enough that I had one person in particular that was the first attorney that we brought over that I had known for a while. So I wasn't necessarily having to go out into the open market and recruit, my number two at the firm. This was an individual who had worked for me as a law clerk and then as a new attorney doing contract work here and there, was at another firm that we were all very good friends with. And it just it naturally progressed into that. But I tell you, the biggest struggle scaling the business has been getting the administrative team together and getting people that are good at when your business is at $500,000 in revenue, and those people still being good when your business is at $1 million in revenue, and those same people still being good and valuable to the business and have the mindset to grow with the business at the $2 million level. That has been the biggest struggle that we faced as a firm, particularly over the last 5-6 years.
Gotcha. Now, and there's a variety of people who listen to the show that they're at different stages. Some of them maybe south of, $500,000 a year. Some of them maybe as much as 8 million a year. So for, I guess, level setting, when you say administrative, what types of roles are you referring to?
Sure. I mean, I'm talking about anyone at the firm that's not a lawyer. So anywhere from on the front end, right, the receptionist or an office assistant, to a legal assistant or a paralegal, all the way up to an operations manager or a legal administrator. Those have been the roles that we have struggled. Admittedly, I think everyone struggles with those, some more than others, to get people that could withstand the test of time and the rapid growth of the firm. Because when the firm is growing so quickly, from a staffing perspective and from a revenue perspective, it's hard sometimes to bring everyone along with that ride because they may not necessarily have the business background or have invested the time and the money into the business coaching that I might have. And obviously the people underneath me might have gotten that through sort of osmosis through what I'm preaching. So it's difficult sometimes to transition that growth with people that may not view that job as a career. They may view it as a stopgap. They may view it as a couple of months or a couple of years and not be invested in the way in it. Obviously the owner would be.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So now for yourself, like as the firm was growing and it still continues to grow, about how much of your time are you spending in the practice of law versus running the firm?
Yeah, that's a really good question because that has certainly shifted over time. And I think it's no coincidence that the more I sort of stay out of the practice of law, at least not every day, not every day I'm in court, not every day I'm interacting with clients, the more rapid growth we could have, because that's a tough thing. And I remember when I started this business coaching and started really investing in the growth of the firm and running it like a business, because that's what it is, resistant to that. You go to these seminars, you go to these workshops, and you talk about people that are like, I haven't touched a client, I haven't contacted a client or directly in 3 years, and I'm the CEO of the firm. I'm a lawyer, but I don't practice law anymore. Like, never be me, and it never will. But over time, you go from 4 to 5 days in court a week to 3 to 4 days in court a week, and now maybe it's about 2 days a week or so. But that's not possible unless you have the right team there, right? Because some of the biggest thing and some of the biggest problem that lawyers have, especially criminal defense lawyers or solo practitioners, is their ego. No one's as good as me. No one's going to be able to handle this case as good as me. The clients only want me. My name's on the door, right? That type of mindset. But the reality is that just means you haven't found the right people yet. Because when you find the right people and you put them in the right places, you'll realize that the clients just want to be represented right. They want their story to be heard. They want someone that they can know, like, and trust, whether it's, the name of the firm, the number one of the firm, so to speak, or whether it's anyone else. And I think the ego gets in the way sometimes of growth. And in essence, you're putting your own ego ahead of your growth and the ability to help more and more people. So now I'm in a situation where, I'm much more selective in the cases that I'm taking, that I'm handling. And that in turn is enabling more time to spend on the business instead of in the business, because the reality is there's no other way to grow it the right way.
Gotcha. Now, as you kind of make that, the transition for yourself of seeing like, okay, all right, yeah, I really can spend less time in the practice of law, more on the business, how did you see your, the rest of the team and the staff respond to that, to where it's just like, hey, I'm going to court less. you got I'm giving more, more authority, more lead on the practice of law to the team. How did they respond as you were going through that transition?
Yeah, they've been really supportive, and I think the reason why is they see the work, right? It's not a situation where, well, I'm not going to court, so I'm not around. I'm working. At this point in the business, I'm probably working more than I ever have. It may not be day in day out on case work, but they see the work, they see the management, and they know the amount of time that I put in to grow this business. First, to obtain the health of the business, maintain the health of the business, and then to grow it. So I'm at the point right now where I never wanted to, and I never will cross this line where you become rusty as a practitioner, right? Where you walk into court and someone's like, "Wow, that guy lost a step," or "That woman lost a step." That's just not going to happen. That kind of stuff is not going to happen. But I tell you what, though, long-term growth of the firm, long-term benefit of everyone here. I want to get to where I could probably see that line, but never cross it.
Gotcha. No, that is, I think that is very interesting, like I said, to hear the stories of different lawyers that are traveling through that of, becoming more of the CEO, less of the practitioner in the firm. So now, I guess, as you kind of look at, as you focus more on the business side of, being the CEO of the firm, and you talked about the administrative side, like how many administrative roles do you have within the company, like to kind of help you navigate some of those areas of the business side of the firm?
Yeah, we've had anywhere from 2 to 4 people on staff at any given time. We had in 2020, 2021, excuse me, we had a legal administrator that was there for a little while. That didn't work out for a number of reasons. So I sort of reassumed that role, right? Because the role that I'm in now is sort of senior attorney, but it's predominantly, legal administrator, office manager, sort of a little bit of everything. But over time, it all depends, right? What we really need, at least at our firm, is someone with more of the finance and HR background, because I love the sales and the marketing. I love the copy that we're putting out there to differentiate ourselves from every other criminal defense firm we believe in San Diego. I love that aspect of the job. The HR is still something that, you could have a fractional COO, that you speak to 2, 3 times a month, and they may be as good as they get. But the reality is you need someone on the ground when you get to a certain level to lead the non-attorney team, to deal with the HR stuff, and to deal with the finance stuff on the day-to-day operations of the firm. And that's where, I think when you get to that 1.5 to 2.5 range, you really need a high-end professional. And they don't have to have experience in law firms. They just have to have experience in businesses, because at the end of the day, those concepts translate. Those concepts, travel to law firms, what works for other types of businesses.
Gotcha. Now you mentioned about, spending a little bit more time, like I said, the marketing, the sales side, you know, what was that process like for you? I mean, when and just, finding the right messaging that connects with the target audience, the type of clients that you want to work with.
Yeah, two main things on that, right? The first is, 15, 16, 17 years doing this now, you get to a point where, okay, you've represented, or the firm has represented thousands of people, and you get to know who your ideal or who your avatar client is, right? Who's the most, who's the easiest client to work with, who gets you what you need to get them the best possible outcome, imaginable based on the facts. But I tell you, what we keep going back to in everything that we're doing is, when I write copy, when I write marketing stuff, I think about me. Because in 2004, I got arrested, and I spent, let's not make it anything that it's not. I spent 20 hours in jail. Okay, but what I could tell you is, I was in law school at the time, and I didn't know, for a significant period of time, a couple of months, what effect that was going to have, whether I could be a lawyer, whether I was going to have to go back to jail, what type of shame and embarrassment of telling my family about this, the financial constraints or the financial limitations I thought may be limited on my future. So thinking about that, and thinking about what was going on in my head, and what put me at ease, and what my attorney at the time was able to do to alleviate some of those concerns, short term and long term, is where that messaging comes from. And that's stuff that not a lot of people will talk about, right? They want to make it about them and how great they are. But the real key is, in order to get that emotional connection, you have to put yourself in the client's shoes. And And I'm not going to get up here and say that I can relate to every client that we've ever had based on their socioeconomic background or based on what they're accused of doing, right? But having a taste of the criminal justice system as the accused, as the criminal defendant, with all in the balance, I think has really helped. And once I started embracing that and willing to share that story, I think we made the firm a lot more relatable to the type of client that we want.
Nice. I think that that is a gold mine of, like I said, being able to connect and speak the language of your clients and understand where they're coming from. So, if people are interested in learning more about the firm or working with you guys, where's a good place for them to find you online?
Sure. Online, the best place is the website, davidpshapirolaw.com. From there, you have links to all of our social media. You have links to our phone number, our contact page on there. You could download a copy of a book that I wrote a couple of years ago about what you need to know when facing criminal charges. There's some videos that I see you scrolling through, what to look for in a criminal defense firm, things that people really need to be looking at, even if they're not going to hire us, even if they're just doing their research. That we put a lot of stuff out there that is just information, right? It's educational because we are confident that there's a handful of criminal defense firms in San Diego that we believe are on our caliber or close to our caliber, and we think that the consumer out there, the more educated they are, even if it doesn't lead them to our firm, will know that they're going to be in better hands, right? So they don't make an impulse irrational decision, maybe based on trying to save a couple of bucks or because they need an answer right away. So we're really big on putting out information. There's a ton of resources, ton of free resources on that website, and then obviously you can contact us directly through there.
Awesome. Now, before we, started recording, there was a couple of things that you and I talked about with some of the recognition that the firm and yourself have been receiving. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. Always love an opportunity to talk about that. In September of 2022, we were nominated and actually won the Better Business Bureau Torch Award for Ethics for 2022 in the 6 to 10 employee category for basically for Southern California and the Pacific Southwest. I think was the range, but for San Diego predominantly. And that was something that we are so proud of here for a number of reasons. One, because it's the BBB, right? It's like the beacon of stability and business recognition. And, it was an interview process. It was a written interview process. It was an in-person process, talking about the culture, talking about the ethics of the firm. And think about that for a second. I got really emotional actually when I was on stage talking about it because, 30 of the last 40 years of my life, my formative years sort of were flashing before my eyes, and the people that played a role in impugning to me, always do the right thing, whether people are watching or not, right? And you could build a reputation, you could build character, and you can lose it in 6 seconds if you don't. That was such a special day for myself, and more importantly for the entire team in September to be a Torch Award Ethics finalist and then a winner. I'm still waiting for someone to tell me when the last time a criminal defense firm in San Diego was nominated, let alone won. So I haven't heard that yet. I think we might be the only one. And then in November of 2022, the middle of November of 2022, another real reputable organization, the San Diego Business Journal, puts out every year the SD 500, which are the top 500 most influential people, according to them, in San Diego. And I remember a couple of years ago, I'd read the Business Journal here and there, and I would see it, and I would see, how many of these people do I know? How many of these people do I want to know? And how cool would it be one day to be there? And I honestly never thought it would happen in 2022, but it did. So according to the San Diego Business Journal, me, but more importantly, because with the backing of the firm, are one of the 500 most influential people in San Diego. And that was a really, really cool honor. But again, all part of that stuff that we've been talking about today, not possible as a solo practitioner, not possible without scaling the business, not possible without running it like a business because it is, and not possible without hiring the right people and putting them in the right places to enable me to sort of step out of the day-to-day legal production and know that the people that we have and the attorneys we have are as good, if not better than me on any given day, and are serving the clients as good, if not better than I ever could. And that's really been liberating and enabled me to get out there and make a change in the community and lead that change in the community in ways that just wouldn't be possible if I was David Shapiro, the lawyer, 60 to 70 hours a week, as opposed to the small business owner.
Awesome. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, one final question that I love asking every guest that comes on. I mean, let's say you're having a conversation with someone and you're saying, like, hey, I was on the Law and Finance show with Terrell, and hey, you should go back and listen to my conversation I had with him. Now, if you're telling them to listen to your conversation, what are two big takeaways you think they should pay attention to in this conversation?
Sure. Two big takeaways is invest in your team, right? Don't go on the cheap. Don't try and save a little money. You have the right person for that right role at the right time. And even if it's not the right time, if it's a year down the road, you're like, hey, I wish this person wasn't here now. They were here a year down the road. Make it work. Find a way to make it work, because good people, good talent, people that want to be where you're at and be a part of your vision and live and breathe your vision and your mission the way you do are hard to find. And we've been so fortunate to have so many people that share in those goals here. The second thing I would say is surround yourself with people who have done and gone where you want to go. I have some very, very good friends that are criminal defense attorneys in San Diego. But, when I talk business with people who've run exponentially greater companies and organizations than I have. People that have coached people who've run exponentially greater businesses and organizations and larger organizations than I have, because I can learn from them, in ways that you might not be able to learn from someone who's, complaining about the market, complaining about the courts, complaining about COVID, complaining about whatever. Surround yourself with people that have gone where you want to go, and you'll just be a sponge. And if you retain 40% and implement 20% of it, you're going to put yourself in a better position.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being an amazing guest, and all the best in your continued success.
My pleasure, Terrell. Thank you so much.
If you're looking for ideas on how to manage and grow a profitable law firm, this Facebook group is perfect for you, because every week we are featuring conversations with successful lawyers and businesses related to law firms on tips, ideas, and technology that are helping many people grow and manage a profitable law firm. So if you're looking for great tips and ideas, you definitely want to click the link below so you can join the conversation and be part of the Law Firms and Finance Facebook group.